everyone who makes himself great will be humbled, and for everyone who humbles themselves will be made great. Greetings in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, and on this day of the great Lent, the portion taken for meditation is from Luke 18, 4 to 13, Luke chapter 18, 4 to 13. There are two parables in this. The first parable is on a widow and a judge, and the second parable is on a tax collector and a Pharisee. We will be concentrating on the second parable, a parable about pride and humility. It's a gripping story wherein a tax collector and a Pharisee come to temple to pray. And when it came to a question on whose side God will be, the tax collector was considered a low being who betrayed his kinsman and was obviously not the popular choice. Everyone was rooting for the Pharisee because they considered him noble. Both came, both prayed, but God went home with only one. And to everyone's surprise, it was not the Pharisee, it was the tax collector. Now, how did that happen? Was he lucky that day? Let's see the things that the Pharisees did wrong and the tax collector did right. First, the Pharisee brought with himself a measuring tape with which he was keen on measuring himself with everyone else. He prayed, he started his prayer by saying, I am not greedy, I am not dishonest, I am not an adulterer. Like everyone else. He thought he was better than everyone else, especially better than the tax collector. The practice of comparing ourselves with others is so common that we do not even realize that we are comparing ourselves with others. The standard which is set is God's righteousness, the standard of God's righteousness and not people's righteousness. He, the Pharisee, was blinded by his own pride. Second, he carried with himself a list of things that he has done for God. He said things like, I fast twice a week, I give 1/10 of the income that I earn. He was boasting and bragging about the things that he has done for God. The very God who knows everyone, who knows everything that you do, who knows the very intention with which you do everything. And he was bragging of all the things that he has done for God. On the other side, if you look at the tax collector, everything about the tax collector revealed contrition and brokenness. If the Pharisee's hands were full, the tax collector came in with nothing in his hand. He stood afar because he was ashamed of the sins that he had. He didn't compare himself with someone who had a greater sin. He kept his eyes low and he beat his chest, which shows how sincere and sorrowful he was. He knew he was a sinner and only God could forgive him, only God could redeem him back to life. Instead of self-declaring that he is righteous, he pleads and begs for God's mercy, for his forgiveness. And he did not ever tell of all the things that he has done for God. The things which should be done out of love for God, out of prayer for God, and out of forgiveness, asking for forgiveness, and not with an intention wherein you're boasting about yourself. We need to realize that we have nothing to offer to God and He has everything to give us. So in that way, we need to be humble. We need to humble ourselves because only the humble will be exalted. With that thought, I will leave you with one question. How many times have we measured someone else for the way they live, for the way they pray, for the way they come to church, for the way they look? This Lent, let us leave behind the act of comparing, of measuring ourselves with others' righteousness and submit ourselves to God with nothing in our hands.